with Vinnie Greene. Hanging out with me on the podcast screen. Hello today. Good moment,
Hey
Vinny. Nice to
man,
meet you again,
hey,
buddy.
how you how you keeping, bro? It's been too
What
long,
what
way too
what's
long.
easy and like super easy to do is just sit and talk to you and then never hit the record button. And for us, just we could just do that all day and just
Yeah,
hang out. But which
yeah, man,
which makes me
you're a cool
know it's
dude.
going to be an easy, fun, organic, probably funny, very some good, uh, some good,
I make no promises.
some good. Hey man, neither do I. I'm a big fan of the band Incubus. Do you
Nice.
know them?
Fungus Among Us.
Yeah, yeah. But they have one song called "Promises, Promises," and I think it's on Morning View. Maybe Make Yourself one of those albums, and it says, "Promise me only one thing, will you? Don't ever make me promises." And I took that, mixed that with the fact that I was sitting with like an elder in the wrestling business, and he told me that that uh, good guys or baby faces never make promises. Only bad guys or heels will make promises because they can make a promise and not follow through on it, and they're a bad guy. They're a heel. That doesn't matter. Like they're okay with lying, but a good guy shouldn't be okay with lying to his fans. So I took that and a little bit of that and a little bit of like growing up. My mom would always do this thing uh, where she would this make maybe sounds like a negative, but I don't want to bash my mother in saying this, but like she would do this thing where like she would suggest you do something, and she'd be like, uh, then like when you didn't do the things she suggested, she'd be like, "You promised you would do it," and I'm like, "I've never said I promised anything." So
Yeah,
I those three things combined are why promises never happen. Coming from this end, because
yeah.
I just yeah, no, just want to stay expectations at regular level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I seen this clip with Conor McGregor. It's like he was talking about little defeats and little wins and little victories. So you should
Right.
never like promise yourself something and then not follow through because all those little defeats will build up and it will like literally destroy you after a while. So what you should do is you should make like little things like little progress, constant progress. So you make these like little things that are so achievable that every time you achieve them you feel like you're winning and these little victories will like build up and build up build up and it'll become a habit. So like he talks about like you should never make promises that are too hard to keep because if you don't keep them it feels like a defeat, and then each time you make a promise that is harder and harder to keep, these defeats keep building up and then you become like a defeatist almost, like, you know what I mean? So that's what I like. Yeah, you should never make too many promises, and if you make promises, you should always make ones that are achievable, because each achievement you become a bigger person or whatever because you're constantly achieving your goals. So it's a better way to keep a positive mindset, like. So I'm one of those people. I try not to make too many promises anymore because, like, anytime you don't pull through, you feel like a dick.
Brace yourself. I'm about to quote Tommy Boy. Here goes. I could take a dump in a box and mark it guaranteed. Believe me, I've got spare time. But yeah,
That's Chris Farley, was it?
that is Chris
And
Farley.
David Spade.
Yeah.
Mm.
So there's only a couple things I have in mind that I like that I feel like I'd like to ask you. I know this is,
Awesome.
is probably I could have asked you this stuff at any time, but I figure I'll do it whilst on the record here with you. Um, Now, from your perspective, what do you see? What do you see, and what do you think of America right now, from the
Mm.
outsider looking in on what America
Mm.
is?
Oh, okay. So you're obviously talking about the political spectrum, Maria, or are you talking
Everything.
about
Just
the
the
the,
why
the gender issues
I
and
mean,
the gender
that can
politics?
be that can all they're all microcosms of it. I'm talking about entire the entire
The American experience.
America. What
Yeah.
is your
Oof.
sweeping thought process on how it's looking?
Okay, like if I was to get a dragnet and pull it right across the entire continental United States at the moment, and try to glean some sort of like idea of what is going on there and what kind of ramifications or implications it has for the world and the greater spectrum, I would say you're a completely misguided country at the moment in terms of like the infighting has become so bad that no matter what one side says or the other side says, there's always opposition, even if it's like the right thing. It's like it all like no matter what happens in America at the moment, that like the message is being lost in the messenger, if you know what I'm saying. It's
Hmm.
because like Donald Trump, like for example, there's no more divisive in American politics than Donald Trump, right? Because whether you love or hate him, if he has like a good message, it gets lost in the fact of the person, the messenger, once again. Because like, look at his recent interactions with the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, where he just literally lambasted him and JD Vance lambasted him on live television in front of the American media and all this. The message he was sending Zelensky was right, but the way he did it was completely wrong. And that's what I'm saying is the message is often sometimes lost in the messenger, because what he was telling Zelensky made a lot of sense, even though he shouldn't have been so pro Putin. But the fact that he did it in the way he did it is appalling. You should never air your dirty like laundry in public like that. You should never do that,
You know,
especially
when
when
you
the
said pro
implications.
Putin like that, it made me think of how enjoyable farts are. Putin, I'm pro Putin too.
Pro
Farts
Putin.
are always funny.
but but like yeah, so that's like the one time I did a podcast when we were talking about LGBT, and then I went on a rant about how it reminded me of the Warriors, like it was like lesbians come out to play. And you had all these rival gangs, and it was like trans were like coming down like clicking their fingers.
The what was the baseball guys? The
Yeah, I remember them. Had his face painted. Oh
yeah,
man, yeah,
the
I love that movie.
uh, tapping little glass bottles together. Excuse me, lesbian.
Come out to play. But
It's
yeah,
so
so
stupid.
like.
Sometimes sometimes it gets mad stupid around here.
That was a great podcast I did back in the day with really funny comedian Brandon Zakai. He's actually doing a lot of photo art at the moment. He's
Mhm.
on Instagram, so he's really really cool dude, and he's so funny, man. He's used to be a stand up comic, and he's kind of doing like artwork now and shit. Like, so he's really really funny guy. But yeah, so like back to like the state of the union, I suppose. But I I just think like on a grander scale at the minute, the World War Three. It just, if we're going to talk about the implications of what could happen, like if we're going to go like complete devil's advocate and look at what is the worst possible thing that could happen with America at the moment and the implications it could have on an international stage, is World War Three breaks out. Where does America stand? Like, from a European perspective, look at NATO. They just had a massive conference with Vladimir Zelensky. No United States involved. At the moment, the United States look like they're going to be on the Russian side of the fence, and that means maybe with China, likes of Iran. Like, these are supposed to be America's age-old nemesis. Like, so it's so confusing. Like, like from a person that's on the western side of things, like Ireland and America have this really, really, really like entrenched relationship. Like, going back generations. Like, people going over there, and like Irish people emigrated there like en masse, like during the famine and post famine, during the Great Depressions, all these different times. Like, so like the two countries, like are so intertwined. And from an Irish perspective, looking across the pond and looking over at America now, it's like you don't see the America that we used to aspire to. Everybody used to look at America, the land of like land of opportunity, like the land of hopes and dreams. Like, you know what I mean? It was supposed to be the place of milk and honey and all this. And I don't know, man. Like, your infrastructure, Shaw, your political messaging is all over the place. I don't know, and you've given in so much to wokeism and like uh, gender politics, and it's really a country that's lost its identity in so many ways, and it's crazy to see like this the powerhouse kind of in a downward spiral. Like, but every empire falls, but it's crazy to see, man.
It's like when Mike Tyson got knocked out for the first time.
Mm, Buster Douglas.
Yeah, this guy was dominating, and now he's not. Uh,
Mm,
I it's a strange way of looking at it because I mean it to generalize. I think the over sweeping. There's so much more like intricacies and the nuance inside of it, but
mm,
like there's got to be like a third way. The thing is there's so much dualism. Like it's like either one way or the other way. Instead of it like there's so much gray inside of like there's black and white and there's so much gray that everyone's ignoring. Not everyone. Don't let me I don't want to generalize. One more time like I said. But like everybody's either right or wrong and there's no in between.
yeah,
There's definitely in between like that. No one is less of a person for saying, "Yeah, I'm a little bit wrong on this." Uh,
yeah,
you're it doesn't make you bad everywhere if you say, "Oh man, I might have been wrong about this, or I might have been wrong about that. Maybe this guy was right about this thing. Maybe that guy was right about that thing." Like
yeah.
it's so divided
Like,
among
no human being can be liberally minded on every single topic.
right. Yeah.
Like, no human being can ever be conservative on every single topic. So just to break a society down into conservatives and liberals and like that's pretty much what every society is almost around the world. You have conservatives and liberals, and then they're always combating one another because they've failed to acknowledge that there's actually a middle ground, or they fail
Right.
to acknowledge that like liberalness and conservatism come this it's situational. It's like what
Mhm.
Chris Rock used to say, like, you know what I mean? I'm liberal on certain things, but I'm conservative on other things. Like, it's like that's the way I am too. Like, you know what I mean? Where I could be classed as a liberal on many things in many ways that I think. But also, if you're to speak to me over many other subjects, I could be classed as conservative by other people. So,
Mhm.
so to pretty much to kind of, as you say, make it a black and white situation instead of like looking at all the nuances and looking at the gray areas, then you leave yourself with one thing, and that's combat. You're going to constantly combat each other because there's going to be no middle ground because you fail to admit that there is a middle ground. And most topics or most subjects or most situations usually get like figured out because you reach an empath, you reach a compromise, and compromise is the middle ground. And if you can't reach a compromise, you're just going to be combating each other forever. And that's the problem with American politics as well, like in a lot of other places too. But America is one of the most guilty of it.
And it's like we're inside of a culture where like cancel somebody all the way because
Mm,
of one idea, one sort of thing. It's like there's I don't know if it's everybody everywhere all around the world, but I've
yeah.
noticed that groups love a frenzy. They love like attacking, like a full
Mm.
on like let's
Blood in
all
the
lose
water.
our minds over something without kind of reviewing.
The mob mentality.
Right. The mob mentality, yes.
Yeah, like I think though, like I think as well, there's this like sense of like antagonism that people like love to like to do, or like the left, I love to antagonize the right, and they like, so they look at the things that the right don't like, so and then what they do is they amplify everything. So like at first it was the gender politics, and then that, so that became more and more amplified and more in like in the mainstream or in the zeitgeist in the middle of the culture, because it was antagonizing the right, and then the right then started to show their hate more because that antagonized the left. And then because of the likes of X, that was formerly Twitter, it became more of a situation because they were constantly antagonizing each other, and every time they antagonized each other, it escalated. And I think that's one of the reasons. Like if you look at American politics right now, that there is almost no middle ground, because they've set such a long time now they've antagonized each other, and the escalation has gone on. That who's going to back down first? It's like a game of chicken. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the way it is. And like, it's like Donald Trump is going to become more pro Putin because he knows it antagonizes his opposition. So
Well,
it's going to just escalate.
he's so pro strength and anti weakness that he
Mm,
thinks that like I, one more time, not an expert on any of this. So when I say
mm,
he thinks this or he says that or whatever, I'm not coming from a place of like I all the way know what he thinks. This is I think this might be part of it, that the
yeah,
people who do speak about it aren't big enough to say they're not experts on it. A lot of the
yeah,
like the sway, the media is opinion based because like it's all filling ad space. It's
yeah.
all like we're gonna have an ad break in between my conversation where I said he's probably thinking this, he's probably thinking that. There's gonna be an
Mm,
break in between that where it talks about uh, boner pills or something. You know,
yeah.
it's it's all just filling airtime.
Sound bites.
Sound bites, yes, and it's
Mm,
clickbait,
yeah,
click clickbait culture. Uh,
yeah.
I was diagnosed with ADD when I was 4, and um, now the world has it. Like I I
Yeah,
didn't
this is
know
their
I
cat.
had.
No.
When I was a kid, I got like bullied for it. Like I got like made fun of for it. Now the world has become me, and and I I like put my hands up about social media, and I go like, oh, I never post any of my opinions. I don't ever like you
Mm,
won't read like a long Facebook post that says that I think this about that, and I just I'd rather just opt out. Uh,
yeah, I'm the
and
same, man. Yeah, there's enough voices in that circle. I find.
exactly. Yeah. I think for the longest time, and I think even starting doing the podcast, I used to say a lot that I wanted to write my own book. I wanted to write a autobiography talking about like like how I came up. Not just
Yeah,
my life, I'm talking about how I came up in wrestling and how I
yeah,
like the stories and like the people that I met and the things that I had done. I'd started writing it, and I I kind of stopped writing it, going like, oh, I don't want to like write and release a book until I know that like I can have an ending that makes sense, like that's like good and happy and inspiring in some way. Um, then I was also thinking about like my ideas, my life, my opinions about things evolve so much. I'd hate to put out some literature and have it say a thing that I maybe don't agree with in 10 years. And then somebody reads that book and it hurts their feelings. And they come to me and they go, hey, this thing that you said in this book was wrong and it hurt me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even agree with that anymore. I was that, so,
mm,
and and I was like, oh, I'll start a podcast where it's all evolving. So my opinions can evolve, my thoughts can change on stuff. So like if I did think that and I did say that, maybe I wasn't all the way right, but maybe I wasn't all the way wrong. But it's always ever changing. It's never going to be. It's never going to be foot feet in the ground. Like I'm firm on this stance. I I so then I went, oh well, like audio's the new literature as far as
Mm.
that goes because I can update things. But I mean, I still like to write a book, but haven't quite gone back to it. How did you arrive on fiction? Did you think like the real world and journey has become
um,
so fiction that you'd like rather get it into the realm of like, okay, well, I don't have to focus on what the world is when I'm focusing on this world that I'm creating.
yeah, like so pretty much my journey and how I became an author was back in 2018. I'd recently become unemployed, and I didn't know what I wanted to do myself. I'd just finished up working in this like really good job, and I was pretty much thinking that was going to be my future. It didn't pan out. Um, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what will I do with myself? What are the things I wanted to do? Like, I wanted to do something that I actually wanted to do while I was going to find a job that I had to do, if that made any sense. Because I wanted to figure out what my long term plan was going to be. Because every time I began a job, I never saw myself staying long term because there were never the things that I wanted to do. There were just things that I was doing because I had to do them, you know? So, like a set career. So, um, I always wanted to be a writer from since I was a kid. It was one of the things I always excelled at in school in English, literature, and all this was fiction writing. And uh, it's something I tied with in my late teens. When I was about 18 or 19, I was going out with this girl. She was a very good artist, and we talked about maybe doing a comic book. It's something I always wanted. That's what I initially wanted to do. I wanted to be a graphic novel writer. I was like inspired in my late teens by Garth Ennis in the Preacher series, and
Okay.
he's
Was it
him and
Robert Kirkland was part of that?
sorry.
Was Robert Kirkland a part of that too, like the creator of Walking Dead?
No, it was Garth Ennis wrote it and Steve Dillon did the illustrations.
They
Garth
made a
Ennis
series on it, right? On AMC with like Seth Rogen promote was like
produced, yeah, I guess Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg produced it, and it starred Dominic Cooper and Joseph Gilgan and Ruth Nega, who's actually Irish as well. Big shout out to Ruth Nega, she's super hot. And that was based on the graphic novel from the it was made back in the 90s, I think, initially, and there's lots of things that was altered in the TV show. There was like Arseface, and then the reason he shot himself in the comic books was because he wanted to emulate Kurt Cobain, stuff like that. So it was very 90s grungy, and it was just this incredible graphic novel. I got a loan of a friend of mine, and I was like, fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what I would love to do. This is what I aspire to do. If everything was to work out for me in my life, I'd love to write comic books, graphic novels of this nature, not just superheroes, like just this completely different. I never knew graphic novels could be like this. So, but I went away anyway, and I worked, and I became a father, and I worked, and whatever. And eventually, I found myself in this place where I was unemployed. I was 30 years old, and I wanted to decide. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do myself. So I was like, I want to write a graphic novel. I said to my ex, I want to be a writer, and she goes, "Why don't you? Like, why don't you try it? Like, you know?" And I watched an episode of Graham Norton and David Williams spoke about the only limit when you're a writer is your own imagination. I figured, hey, look, I've got a big imagination. I think I do anyway. Maybe I can figure this thing out. So during 2018, the summer 2018, I wrote my first screenplay, and it was called Bunker, which I'm currently adapting into a novella called, which is now entitled We Are Many. And a lot has changed in that story, but like that's where I began, you know. A few months later, I was watching a horror western called Bone Tomahawk, and I was like, "There's not many western horrors. Like this is so cool. Like, it's not really a genre that's been explored." what could I do in this space? And I was falling asleep one night on the couch, and the words "river bones" popped in my head, and I was like, what could that be? What's that story about? Like, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, piece by piece, the story started to pop into my brain, and I wrote this big 10 part. Like, I wrote it as a screenplay initially because I wanted to be for a graphic novel. So I wrote it as if it was a 10 issue graphic novel series, and then it sat there for about a year, and I did very little with it. I was touching it up, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to make it a polished article because I was like, I tried to get illustrators, and that never happened. I could never pan out a sequential illustrator. It's so hard to find someone that wanted to do panel work, and it just sat there. And I was like, okay, I knew my terms of my skill level. I was like, I'm not good enough as a writer yet. I'm not even close. I don't know what I'm doing really. I just have ideas. I don't have technique. I don't have anything. So I decided what I will do is I'll become maybe a columnist. I'll write reviews. I'll write essays. And what else am I passionate about? It's like, I'm passionate about computer games. I'm passionate about like video games. You call them. I'm passionate about movies and TV shows. And I'm like, okay, I've got a wide knowledge on these things, and I think I can write about them in an educated manner if I'm guided by the right people. So I started reaching out to the likes of Screen Rant and places like that. Got no joy because I had no back catalog, no portfolio to show them. So they didn't offer me any freelance work. So I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying. I looked all around social media, all online, Google searches. Did this for like 3, 4, 5 months. Every day I tried, and eventually I came across a site that was looking for new writers that were willing to learn. They were going to educate you, they were going to edit you, they were going to teach you how to be a better writer. And I'm like, this sounds amazing. So I send in my work, and it ended up with the Obsessive Media Group. 25 years later, 25YL, which initially started off as a Twin Peaks fan group, and it ended up branching out into this much larger thing run by, at the time, Andrew Grievous. And I was brought on board, and they just schooled me. Like, it was amazing. Like, I didn't do any fiction for like 9 months. I left my book aside. I'd written a prequel to River Bones, and I'd left that aside, and I just left everything aside. It's like, I'm not good enough. I just left my ideas aside, and then I went and learned with them for like 9 months straight. Got published like 60 plus times. I wrote essays, movie reviews, columns, everything. My work got shared by James Gunn, Andrea Arvidal, like the director of Trollhunter, like John Noble from Fringe. Like, it was amazing. Like, it's everything I could have hoped for, and it was all because people like Andrew Grievous and Lauren Stewart like believed in me. And then we had my editor Matt Armitage, who poured lots of hours into teaching me, about punctuation and the grammatical errors I was making, syntax issues. So like, I was literally nothing. Like, they built me up. And at the end of that period of time, I said, I, I don't. This isn't what I aspire to do. I wasn't getting jealous looking at people writing reviews. I wasn't getting jealous looking at people
Right.
writing columns.
Yeah, how could you? I
Yeah.
mean,
What I was getting jealous
mhm,
of was people publishing their own books,
mhm.
people writing their own stories.
No,
So
no.
I
When you put that down, did you think you were going to pick it back up and start, or did you think I'm just putting this down for this other thing that's going to be more satisfying as a career?
No, I always knew I was going to go back to it. That's why I started working with these websites, because I wanted to improve myself as a writer. So, like, I figured the best way to get used to being critiqued, like if I write a book and it goes out there, people are going to have criticisms, people are going to have their own opinions. And I was such a sheltered person that at the time, in terms of like in that space, that like if I put a book out there and it was trashed, it would have just deterred me completely, and I never would have
Yeah.
written again. I would have been, yeah, like, you know what I mean? I would have killed the baby in the crib, sort of thing. So I said, I'm going to harden myself. Like, so I went out. I wanted my work to be in the public eye. I wanted there to be public discourse. I wanted to be able to talk to readers and get their general ideas, and like speak to editors and have them critique my work and improve me and see where my weaknesses lie. And then I was like, okay, this just, it's not that it wasn't satisfactory to me, it just wasn't my passion. It was something I knew I needed to do to improve. So I went and did it. Like, I can be a bit obsessive at times. I can just get stuck in. I grind and I work really hard, and I learned a lot from the likes of like Don Shanahan as well. Like, you know, he's such like such a workhorse, and he's a great film critic now. Like, he has, like, you know, every movie has a lesson, his own site, and he's really like informative, and like, and I learned a lot from him and how he worked, and I looked at how others worked, and it built up this like work ethic in me, because in that 9 months I wrote like 60 something articles. I was constantly writing every 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. I was writing a 2,000 word article. So it gave me that like routine, but also built up a work ethic in me. And I was like, but it wasn't what I really wanted to do in the long term, because, as I said to you a minute ago, I didn't get jealous of when people were publishing like their articles and it was getting more interactions than mine. I didn't care. Like, you know, it wasn't like, you know what I mean. I was like, I didn't want my work to be seen. It wasn't really my passion. So, but when I seen people like writing their own books and creating their own universes, and I was reading all these graphic novels and reading these novels, and I was like, that's what made me jealous, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted something that was my imagination. I was just
It was like
commenting
you
on
were
other.
it was like you were in the weight room, you know,
Yeah,
like you were trying to get yourself stronger at this thing
yeah,
so that
putting
you
the
could
reps.
apply it to your passion.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, when my period of time came to a close there, I decided to pick back up from where I left off, but do it in a much more professional way. So instead of just scrambling around the dark with my ideas, I said, I'm not going to write a graphic novel because I can't get a sequential artist. I can't get them. So I'm going to write a novel. So I decided to convert River Bones from a 10-part graphic novel series into one novel. So I went, and that took a long time. That was horrible. Like, so it was kind of, because if anybody has ever written a graphic novel, it's in script. It's a script format where you describe the scenes and you have the dialogue and all these things. You go panel by panel. So to convert a 10-part graphic novel into a novel was horrific, and took a long time. So I did that. I kept refurbishing the story, creating the lore, all these kind of things. And then I came to an impasse because I knew my book was missing something, but I just couldn't figure out what it was. So I decided to go look for an editor, a professional editor, Susan Geigers, who I landed on, thanks to Ben Galley, who was instrumental, like, so much of my journey from where I began to where I ended up. And he's an author of so many amazing self-published books. Like, he's an absolute genius. And he put me onto Reedsy, and I was able to link up with like professionals, like an illustrator, because I went through three illustrators, like, you know, and I finally landed on Tia Margeron, and I had an illustrator do 7 illustrations for the book, and
Those
then he left
are
the
great.
project.
The ones I've seen look really good. They look
Dude, the original ones though, like, were it was more comic booky, and he had 7 of the chapter title pages done, and he left the project. And because my other illustrator who did the cover, her style was so different than his, that I had to go back and start all the illustrations again.
okay.
So, like, it was like the learning process that I've had during, like, having to restart. So, but what I constantly did was, I was speaking to Bengali about this, was I was always working on the book. So no matter what the delays were, I just kept working on the book, working on the book, working on the book with my editor, and the two of us became this like amazing kind of duo, where we were just giving each other feedback, and she was improving the book and improving the book and improving the book with me, and then all of a sudden we just locked in this place where I knew what I had to do. Like, the difference in me as a writer from 2018 to when I started taking the book really seriously in 2021 was night and day. But when I got ready for publication, I locked in, bro. Like the focus, it was 10 hours every day for 5 months. Like, right before I started my new job, because I knew I'm gonna have to get this book ready and to be sent to my editor before I start, like, my new job. Like, so that was the thing. Like, I knew I had 5 6 months before I was going to go and take a new job, because that was the way my kind of time frame had panned out. Because I was after leaving I was after leaving the American websites, so I knew exactly what the time frame was. So, bro, I locked in. And like the reason I picked fiction because to like it was because my whole journey was like the reason I picked this was because I grew up watching westerns. Like with my late brother William, who passed away, he introduced me to westerns. I'm fascinated by western lore, like Manifest Destiny. As I spoke a little bit last time I was on a podcast about the Louisiana Purchase, and you'd look about the annexation of California and Texas. Like I'm fascinated by that 30, 40 year period and how much was done in the American West and how lawless it was. That's why I settled on fiction, and but I also settled on historical fiction because I'm a history buff. I love history. Like it's the thing I loved most in terms of like when I was in school. I love studying history. It's the thing I do the most when I'm not like working. I love watching documentaries. I love the Hardcore History podcast, Dan Carlin. So I settled on the West, but I'm also like a massive horror fan. If anybody knows me, like I had this mildly successful podcast back in the day called Invasion of the Potty Snatchers, and we did a couple of hundred episodes, and it was a lot of fun. Like, and I love reviewing movies, so like I came to the conclusion I'm going to write historical fiction, but historical horror. So my first book ended up being this bad boy here, River of Bones, which was published last November under the Blood Wolf banner, and that's our logo there, Blood Wolf Independent Publishing. And all told, it was probably about 6 years in inception, but I took it seriously, really took it seriously for about 3 years, and like what I really want to do is I want my books to outlive me. So like that's why I'm like the second book I'm hoping to come out soon. I'm working on a third book. I'm always going to be working on two books at any given time. That's the plan.
The process of taking it from a graphic novel format where you're writing it out as a script, where it's basically
Mm,
like describing each scene. Are
mm.
you still doing that in your brain for the new stuff that you're coming out for? Like, let's say if you want to adapt it into like a film or like a series that you're putting out, like as a that sort of artistic. And if you're doing that, uh, could you cast me? Because westerns and horror are like some of my favorite things too.
Yeah, man, like the sense of isolation that you can really like build with Western horrors and historical horrors. That's what I love about historical horror is that there's no technology. There's no picking up a phone. There's a telegram.
Right.
That's about it. Like, so but like
Dude,
the
did you watch Westworld? Did you watch that series?
I've seen the first three seasons, but I
I
haven't finished
just
it.
watched the first season. The first season was great. I
The
didn't want to watch. When I got to season two, I was like, "God, this sucks." I stopped watching.
man, the
Season
script
one was
in
great.
those like the script in that show is so good. Like, but like not only that, like I love Westworld, and if anybody reads my book, you'll notice that there's a town in it called Sweetwater, which I lifted from Westworld. Like, I'm a massive fan of that show. I think the dialogue in the first two seasons is some of the best written dialogue I've ever heard.
Mhm,
Some of the character interactions between like Anthony Hopkins and Jeffrey Wright and uh, the girl who plays Dorothy and Tandy Newton, and like man, it's such a well conceptualized show. But like there's to answer your question about the graphic novel thing, when I write, I read a quote before called it said you should have poetry and prose. So when I write my prose, which I was very very poor at the beginning of the process when I became a writer, I found it very hard to like because it was I always wanted to be like a graphic novel writer. There was a lot of dialogue in my stories, and when if anyone ever reads River Bones, you see there's lots of dialogue, there's lots of one-on-one character interactions, because like everybody wants to picture it as a movie in their head. So I found it very hard to visualize certain aspects of the story at the start when I became a writer, and then I figured out different techniques to help. Like music was a big thing. Like I use music a lot, like when I'm writing my outlines or when I'm trying to like come up with new ideas and stuff like that. So
mhm,
the way I write my prose is very descriptive.
mhm,
Now it's very descriptive. I've got a very detailed vision of things in my head. That's because not coming from just the graphic novel thing is because I listen to a lot of music, and that helps you kind of visualize things in a different way. So that does help a lot. So when you do read my prose, there's a lot of description in them.
Nice. Uh, I also in my head, I thought to ask you, had you ever played the Undead Nightmare game on
Yes.
Red Dead Redemption? Because
Hmm.
that was fun. I didn't really get into the Red Dead Redemption series, like as far as like playing them as a regular game. But the Undead Nightmare, when that came out, I'm huge. I don't want to say I'm a huge anything, but I'm not big into video games at all. Like
Mm.
I they lose the fun for me in minutes because I lose a lot, and it's not fun to constantly lose. Like I just fail and lose and don't do the missions properly, and like I playing video games loses its fun for me after minutes.
I played the Red Dead Redemption games while I was rewriting River of Bones to
Right.
help me with the action sequences, because like it gave me an idea of how guns would interact with their environments and how bullets would interact and how people would get undercover, and just that give me the visualization of the movements of people in the Wild West with the weapons and stuff they had. So like I think one thing like about being an author today is if you're actually a gamer, it can really help you, because there's certain ideas like I'll make a movie list, a watch list for certain things when I work on things, because it helps me visualize certain things, or it's like how did they look at this subject matter, how did they do this, whatever, how did they do these big reveals, whatever. So I played actually Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 while I was doing the final rewrite of River Bones and throughout, because I got a good idea of like how wood sounds when it's splintering when bullets hit it, and how people would get covered behind trees, and how they would move around in certain like instances and stuff like that. So it really did help me a lot actually, like outside of watching Wild West documentaries or the men that built America, the frontiermen and stuff like this, and like
Did you watch the Yellowstone series? Have you watched those
no, I
shows?
haven't. No, not yet. It's on Paramount Plus, and I think it just came on Netflix over here too. And there's like a prequel, 1883. I haven't
Yeah,
gotten around to it yet because
1923 as well. There's,
yeah, I just haven't got around to it at the moment. I'm trying to rewatch The Walking Dead. I'm on season 2 of that again. I'm watching Futurama. Like I just finished watching Toxic Town on Netflix. I just watched that Kushoi movie about the Finnish movie where the guy kills all the Nazis.
mm.
That's really, really, really violent and good. I'd really recommend it. It's excellent movie. But like yeah, I've kind of like got ADHD too, bro. Like my interests jump around so much. Like right now, I'm trying to play back the Rockstar series games before Grand Theft Auto 6 comes back, and I'm also playing Days Gone. But at the same time, I work a full time job, like so I try to
I
read a
sound
little
like a
bit.
huge hypocrite when I say I love the Grand Theft Auto games. When I sound like a hypocrite because I just talked about how I don't like video games. But in those, they're free world. You can just do anything. This
Yeah, and
the
you can
same
just leave it down
same
for a
with
week and go
Red
back
Dead.
and play with it.
Right. Same with Red Dead, where you could just whistle and a horse comes running. Like,
Yeah, like I'm gonna go hunting for 2 hours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
like
like
when
that's
I try to do a mission, I fail it immediately. We're like, hey, get to this checkpoint in these couple seconds. I don't get there.
that's.
I just can't.
Yeah, dude, like I was always like a peripheral kind of gamer until the time I was unemployed and I started becoming a writer. That like I just got really obsessed into video games for like about a year there. like I was like I cleared way too many games. Like, and ever since then I've played. I don't play them as often as I used to. As I said, like I'm writing books. I've got a full time job. Like I'm a father. That kind of that old chestnut. So like I get to play them and I get to play them, but like yeah, it's definitely something I do enjoy when I'm working on a project, is to try play something that can give me ideas for what I'm doing. Except for what I'm working on now, because I'm finishing off a book called The Lonely Lighthouse. It's an isolationist horror. There's not really many video games that could really like help me with that story. But like,
It's called The
there's plenty of
Lighthouse.
movies out there. Yeah, the Lonely Lighthouse.
Lone
It's
Lighthouse.
yeah, about a guy that goes to a place called Split Rock, and he has to refurbish a long abandoned lighthouse for the next people that are going to take over, and he's going to be the last solo lighthouse keeper on this island called the Split Rock, and where stuff starts happening. I guess I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, it's not
Do
everything
you
is not what it seems.
do you watch Rick and Morty? Are you a Rick and Morty fan?
Yes,
Do
yes,
you remember
huge recommend.
the lighthouse scene in the Purge episode, the Purge planet?
Man, oh man, that's the one where they're like, is that what the episode where they're like flying above and like everyone starts killing each other? It's like it's
Yeah,
really peaceful at the start.
right. Yeah, no, like,
Yeah.
and then they had the lighthouse worker wanted to read his script to Morty, and he was like, and
Yeah.
like, here, you sit here and listen to his script, and I'll go do whatever I have to do. And then he was reading the entire script to Morty, and he was like, all right, I want to hear your feedback. What do you think? And he was like, keep going, keep going. So maybe that'll help you in your
Yeah.
lonely
I
lighthouse
did watch.
writing to
Yeah, I
watch
did
that
watch.
episode.
I watched the Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe. That helped with like the lingo and stuff like that. Like that's where I try to get a cadence from a lot of these things more
Yeah,
so than ideas. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like the way they speak back then,
right.
or way they spoke back then, and little like things like like superstitions that might have had and stuff like that. It just saves you doing a lot of research, bro. Like when you watch these movies, you're like Rob Eagers knows what he's doing. I'll just like have a look at what he's got going on over there.
Robert Pattinson has a new movie coming out that it looks pretty good. I want to see. It was like the something 17. I forget.
Mickey 17.
Mickey 17. Yeah, that looks like it's pretty good.
Mm.
Where like he
Yeah, I'm
just
hoping to go.
there's a bunch of clones of himself.
Yeah, he just keeps dying over and over again. That's
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It looks pretty good. Um,
the guy who directed Snowpiercer, Bo June Hunt, the guy who did Parasite. He's
yeah,
an Oscar.
I didn't know his name, but
He's a Korean director.
he made that Mickey 17 movie.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah, he's very very talented.
Cool. Um, what's your favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
Ooh, jeez, that's nearly tougher than the American politics question. Yeah. Jaws.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's.
Jaws.
I feel like that's a very popular answer to that question.
Yeah, that's because it's the
I mean,
correct
I've
answer,
never
bro.
asked anyone else that question, but I've asked you. But it feels
Yeah,
like
no,
that would be a very wide answer, number one answer, like uh, right off the bat.
like
Well,
of all the Spielberg movies I watched, that's the one I rewatched the most. You know.
you feel free to ask me that same question, and I'll tell you my answer.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is your favorite Spielberg movie?
Hook,
Schindler's List. Hook.
Hook.
Really? That's an
Hmm.
interesting answer. Why?
It's a great movie. I love it. It gives me chills every time I watch it, and I laugh at the funny parts. And
Rufio,
yeah,
Rufio, Rufio.
it, it makes me feel feelings. I like it a lot,
Boomerang.
and it's got a lot of hidden gems inside of it. Like
Yeah,
Phil Collins is
love.
the cop. Glenn Close is one of the male pirates. There's like a whole bunch of real hidden stuff in it. Like
Yeah.
when Tinkerbell wraps up Peter in the parachute and flies him to Neverland.
Oh, careful with your hand there, bro.
Maybe that was when Elon Musk was talking.
Yeah.
Elon Musk was like, Tinkerbell to Neverland. Second star to the left and head on till morning. when she when she flies over and like she flies over like a walking bridge,
Yeah.
and there's a kissing couple that starts flying because
Mm.
the fairy dust sprinkles on them. That kissing couple was actually George Lucas and Carrie Fisher.
Really? In
Yeah,
Hook?
in Hook. Yeah.
No way.
So a lot of really cool like hidden things in that and like I watched it last night with my fiance and I was just like pointing out all these like little things and I was like oh look, Bob Hoskins plays Smee and I'm like that's Andy Valiant from Roger Rabbit and she was like oh now I'm gonna not see that.
Man, I love that movie growing up. I used to watch that movie a lot. Like I like Hook, Robin Williams, man. I loved Robin Williams. Like,
Yeah, Robin Williams
yeah,
was
he
the
was my
best.
childhood. Him and Jim
Yeah,
Carrey. Like they were my
yes.
childhood pretty much.
I How did you feel about the movie Jack?
Jack, is that the one where he's the kid? Boy, he's
Yeah,
like really old. He's a really old
yeah,
kid. Yeah,
yeah.
it's really sad. Really sad.
I gave it a rewatch recently. I don't know if it ages that well. Um,
Have
Bill
you ever seen that
Cosby and
movie?
his therapist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie Tomorrowland, where George Clooney's like his character gets old, but his love interest is still a kid? It's very creepy, bro. You need to watch it. Like it was pretty much it was his love. They were like child. It was a
When did
child
that come out?
romance, but it was like in the 2010s. It was like
Oh,
10 year ago, maybe the stage where like she he gets older, but because she's a manifestation of his childhood sweetheart, she's a little kid. But they have this like it's weird.
that is
Yeah, I think
bizarre.
I'm remembering it right. Yeah, I think I'm remembering it right. It was based on like a Disney theme park ride, like
Okay.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't based off Pirates of the Caribbean, but
No, 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 no. But you know, in the same vein.
yeah, uh, they there's a Disney park thing called Tomorrowland,
Mm.
and I remember walking through it with my family, but this is probably 20 years ago. I went through it, and it says, "Paging Tom Aro, paging Tom Aro." They had that announcement keeps on playing through the whole
Uh,
Tomorrowland. So don't go to that park if your name is Aro.
Oh my god. It's like it's in Tomorrowland, but yet they're still paging people.
Right. Do you know any other movies that like don't age well?
um Ace Ventura 1 in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I guess.
Um
The
even
the
it
the
did
the
the
Finkel and
trans thing.
Einhorn, Finkel and Einhorn.
Yeah, but even though it's still hilarious. Like,
What's
you know what
that?
I mean? It's still hilarious. Like it might not be
Yeah,
politically
it's
correct
still
or whatever.
Holy Testicle Tuesday.
Oh man, like you know, like he's so good in that movie, man. Like,
Yeah.
and then, but like I don't know, man. Like a lot of the stuff we grew up watching, you're about the same age as me, aren't you? Like I'm
Yeah,
37.
I'm a couple years older
Um,
than you, but
yeah,
we're pretty similar on age. Like I
bro, it's not what you holding on to. Just let it out there. What age are you, bro?
I'm 41. I'm 41.
Yeah,
No,
just let it out
I'm
there, bro. It's not.
yeah,
No point holding on
that's
to your
not
secrets,
old.
bro.
You're 37, right?
Yeah, 37. Yeah, I mean
Okay.
Irish 37 though, so I'm like 50.
I didn't realize there was a there's a time difference. Well, we have a time difference in us talking to each other. I for me right
Mm.
now, for me right now, it's like 12 in the afternoon. But for you,
Yeah,
it's like 5 hours difference, right?
yeah, it's 25 past four,
So yeah, I mean,
4.5.
so that means you age differently too, because we have.
It seems that way. I think it's just all the rain, man. It's just like I think it just like ages us. We're like moss. We age quickly. We grow quickly, or we die off. But yeah, like I was just gonna say, like the most of the movies we grew up watching in the '90s, um, in a lot of people's perspective, have not aged well. But for me, like they're the movies I grew up with, so I hold on to them dearly. I don't care if they've aged well or not. I still laugh my ass off when I watch them because of nostalgia. Like, you know what I mean? But like,
Dude, have
you know,
you
I
recently rewatched Jingle All the Way?
Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that in ages. Turbo Man.
I don't know if it ages that well. If you're gonna watch it, uh, there's a part where they're like waiting in line, and Sinbad is like a mailman, and he like just smacks the shit out of some lady, and then like nothing else happens from it. Like it's not he doesn't get arrested. Like there's no
Quality, bro.
like yeah, that's
Equality.
comedy. That's comedy. Some random strange man just smacks some lady in line and gets away with it. Completely gets away with it. No problems at all.
But yeah, man, it's the '90s. It was the Wild West, bro. Really quality. Equal rights, equal fights.
Yeah, yeah. Equal equal rights, equal lefts.
But
All
yeah, like if you look at stuff from like the '70s and '80s, they've aged horrifically as well in a lot of ways. But they're
oh
still
yeah.
classic movies. They're still good movies. Like you can't keep transposing today's values on things that have happened in the past. You
Right,
just
yeah.
you just can't. It just makes no sense because every time there's a generation, each generation has its own set of values,
Mhm.
whether they
Well,
be right
this
or
is
wrong.
this is the weird part about, like, erasing parts of history,
Oh
like
yeah, I know.
changing Aunt Jemima or whatever.
And
Like,
knocking down statues and stuff like
right.
that.
Yeah, it's like, wh what what's today's standards of things aren't what yesterday's standards of things were, but, like,
Hmm.
what about tomorrow's standard? Paging Tom Morrow.
Yeah, like it's about like how you can have to learn from the past, but
Right.
you can't keep looking backwards and going, oh, that should be stricken from the record. That should be stricken from the record. Should be stricken from the record because it doesn't adhere to today's sense of political correctness. That makes no sense. How are you supposed to learn from the past if you keep erasing it? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you
Like,
know what's really weird to me? And mm, I don't even know how to approach talking about this. Like they stopped calling the master bedroom because of slavery. Like who
really?
cares? Like they call it the main bedroom now, but like only because like they called it the master bedroom because it has slavery origins. I'm like, the world has slavery origins. We're
Mm,
gonna change one room. We call like real estate has been using that as the word for what the main bedroom is
mm.
for longer than slavery ever took place. And it's not like just because like
Can I ask you a question as an American? Why do you think that you've such an intertwinement with your history of slavery in comparison to other cultures? Because as you said, slavery happened everywhere.
I know it happened everywhere and it still happens. Like it's not like
Yeah,
all slavery everywhere went away because of
yeah.
Abraham Lincoln. There is there is
Like
slavery.
you don't see Thracians asking for reparations from Greeks. You know what I mean? Like,
But, like some I think it's that pandery nature that you were talking about. That
Mm,
that that nature of like trying to not offend people and trying to like woke woke culture. A little bit of that. A little bit of like, oh, let's overcorrect. Let's overcorrect and put ourselves put ourselves at a a deficit at some way. I mean, in some way to go, okay, well, well, we've all had it so good. Let's have it worse so that those people can have it good. But it's like that's not moving the ball forward in any way.
mm. Like, I just think like when people still blame something that happened hundreds of years ago for their situation in today's society is baffling to me.
Yeah,
Considering, like, I come from a culture that was enslaved for 800 years, and we don't talk about how that affects us in today's society. Like, you know what I mean? I just don't understand why there's this obsession, especially in America, to look backwards constantly. Like, just
yeah.
like how you're supposed to fix what you're doing now if you're just constantly focused on then, like, so it's just
Paging yesterday.
you were just waiting for that word.
Not at all. Not at all. Organically happened. Yeah, it's just I don't get it. I think it's just like these echo chambers. I think it's like these like focus groups who continuously focus on the errors of
Mm. Not in Saturday than be a feminist, bro.
it's like that, but like with a lot of things. Like
Mm,
the everything when you look at it and you're like, what is going on with that? It's like somebody who has some hidden agenda. It's
mm,
it's the weirdest thing because I've learned. I've seen it. I've seen it a few times, not a whole bunch of times, but the virtue signalers are usually trying to distract you from their shit that they're doing that isn't right. Like I've seen, I, I don't want to even say how many times, but I've seen it a few times in the pro wrestling business where somebody who is going after people online to get them canceled are also on the side doing cancelable things.
mhm.
So I think it's just a deflection, like a constant deflection and then pandemonium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's point the finger at that person to
It's
distract it from the finger
it's like
getting pointed at me.
who usually goes to church the most? The biggest sinners.
The guilty ones. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly, because they have something
Yeah.
to atone for, So that's what
Mhm.
it is. It's like they were in the church of public opinion,
Mhm. I've been making the joke for years. I I I don't want to be canceled, really, but wouldn't I have to already kind of be somebody to get?
Yeah.
If I, wouldn't it be an honor to be canceled? And you'd be like, "Whoa, I was somebody." Yeah.
It's like when I wrote the book, it's a lot of it's about the Crow Native Americans are in it, and I said I hope there's no inaccuracies in my book to a friend of mine, and I was like I'd hate to have like because I reached out to the Crow tribe and I got never got any response from them, asking them, about questions, and I said if I hope there's no inaccuracies because I really tried my hardest with research, and he was like, well, if it ever comes to the point where the Crow tribe are complaining about your book, then your book must be doing well. So I wouldn't care about it too much. I was like, oh, I suppose that's a good way of looking at it.
I tried my hardest.
Oh my god. The pun is strong in this one. Do you think there's going to be a World War Three?
um, it's weird because you'll talk to half the people and they'll be like, "It actually." I could be getting ahead of myself and saying talking to half the people because some people just don't talk about this kind of thing ever. But
Yeah.
um, it might be just inevitable to have
Mm,
some sort of um,
global conflict.
revolution.
Yeah, just like we're still fighting age, bro.
Wait,
You
what?
know what I mean? I said we're still fighting age. So like we'd probably have to like, go out there. You know what I mean?
I
You
mean,
know, the
I'm.
effort of that, bro. The effort of
I
going to
don't know.
war.
I don't know, man. I think. I think when it comes to like doing some sort of draft, and this is a thing that's popped into my head a few times. Uh, I I don't think I'll get drafted in whatever it is. Not that I'm like too old or anything, but I have a metal plate in my head. I'm a brain surgery survivor. And also my eyesight is very bad. Like very, very, very bad. Like I wear
Bro, you
contacts
cook you cooking up excuses already for the recruitment
all the way.
officers, man. It's
All the way.
it's
No, I'm not
he's like,
making
I'm on a
excuses. I'm just
podcast.
saying
I've already
I
said.
don't think I'll get drafted. But will if there were to be some sort of draft, I also
Yeah.
um,
Dude, the
not
crazy thing is though, we could be fighting on opposite sides of the war. Like,
perhaps.
because like if America joins with Russia, like I'm Irish, even though we're a country set with neutrality, we'd probably end up joining. Like we'd
Mhm.
be with NATO, So like we might have to kill each other in the battlefield, bro. That'd be weird. I mean, you're just like, what happened, man? And start off as a podcast. Now
Well,
you're bayoneting me to death.
you have way more knowledge of like the sounds of guns when they ricochet off of. You have way more knowledge of the Wild West and such.
No, bro, I've got a terrible sense of direction. I would so walk onto a minefield, like 100%. I've got like terrible luck and really bad sense of direction. So yeah, I don't
Well,
think I would last long.
I hope that it doesn't come to that. Honestly, I really uh, I
I will
think
see you in no
before
man's
I
land.
think almost before that will happen, the internet will get turned off. I think
Mm,
like I think that I don't think that that's going to happen. I ideally hope and pray that that's going to not happen. But I think that
mm,
maybe they should selectively take the internet away from people who shouldn't have it. Like there should be almost like like they have a driver's exam before you get your license. They should give an internet exam to people to let them keep it. Like
like I just think like the way it's going though, like if all it takes is one NATO country to be attacked, you know what I mean? That's all it
mhm.
takes, and it's game on, bro.
Game on,
Game on,
car.
car.
Gretzky shoots. Gretzky's denied. Choked on the opening tip.
Man, I say that all the time, like game on, and nobody knows what I'm talking about.
I, any like comedy thing, any SNL movie that came out in the '90s, I watched that on VHS 100,000 times as a child.
Man, I
Uh,
love the Wayne's World movies.
mhm. I I'm a bigger fan of Wayne's World 1 than 2. Like I had Wayne's World 2, but I didn't watch it as much. Almost
Yeah.
the same as like Bill and Ted. Like I loved Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I watched that over and over and over. I had Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but I didn't watch it as much.
Mm. So yeah, it's just the rewatchability.
It didn't have. I don't like. It felt like if you compare the two films, we're breaking down some real film science here. Uh, Bill and Ted One was more of like an indie film. Bill and Ted
Yeah,
Two was more of like a studio film, and
yeah,
uh, and it had like bigger budget and bigger effects, but like it it, it didn't have that same rewatchability that you were talking about. It just
yeah. Because it's the formula is known to you now, so it lacks. It's a little less special, you know. It's like when you watch a Quiet Place or something.
did you watch Bill and Ted Three?
No, I just couldn't do it, man.
Uh,
I seen the
I
trailer and I just couldn't do it.
I dude, I had
I watched.
friends. I had friends who remember when like the Force Awakens, like the Star Wars came out.
Mm.
They saw the trailer for that and were crying, and they're like, "I've been waiting for this." Like when the trailer for Bill and Ted Three came out, I was like, "This is how I should feel. I should feel the way they felt when the Force Awakens." But like, I don't feel that. I waited. I've been waiting for this movie my entire life,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
just too late.
and then I watched it, and there was like barely any callbacks to the first two movies. Like there's so many missed opportunities, and then they wanted to they turned it into like this movie about their kids. It was almost like they were trying to set up a new
Mm,
series of things about the
mm.
kids, and I was so bleh. I was so
It's
bored.
like I watched Zoolander 2, and it
Yeah,
was terrible. Like that wasn't good
I
either.
yeah, I don't remember it. I on
Um,
purpose don't remember it, like because
yeah,
I
you were
don't
impressed. Like
like.
Anchorman 2 as well. Anchorman 2 wasn't
Yeah,
as good as the
same. I
first.
don't remember any of that.
The Dumb and Dumber sequel was
Oh, shut up.
terrible.
Shut up. Don't start on that. Dumb and Dumber. I I like that.
The sequel?
Yeah. Um,
No,
dude, rewatch it.
Not Dumb and Dumberer. The sequel with
No, both.
the
I
sequel
like
with.
both. I like. I like.
Ah,
I like. I like the prequel, Dumb and Dumberer. I still
oh.
quote that all the time. Me and my brother. Me and my brother speak in like comedy movie quotes to each other. Like our full conversation will be like Dumb and Dumberer quotes and like Tommy Boy. We go back and forth like Billy Madison, like uh, but Dumb and Dumberer is so funny, and that's a sleeper. Not a lot of people talk about how good of a movie Dumb and Dumberer was.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was I enjoyed Dumb and Dumberer more than I enjoyed the sequel with Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels.
you know what? I thought that too, and then I recently rewatched Dumb and Dumber 2, and I was laughing. I thought it was funny. I I
Maybe I watched it too judgmentally.
Yeah, maybe you had your judgmental cap on. You take your judgmental
Yeah.
cap off and put your comedy cap on and watch it and report back to me about how you felt about it. Actually, way more funny because a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is just some pathetic excuse to make this movie, cash grab sort of thing." But it actually is pretty funny. Uh, There, what's funny about it is Dumb and Dumber Two pretends like Dumb and Dumberer never happened because it was not canon to Dumb and Dumber. It was
It's
completely different. But
cash grab.
cash grab,
Okay.
almost like Halloween. When that Halloween movie came out and they pretended like
Mm.
nothing after two ever took place.
I hate when they do that, bro. I hate it. I hate it. Like
I liked
I'm like
liked it though.
I
I thought it was a good movie. The
it
one
was a good movie, but you could easily have reworked the pre-existing continuity into it and still make the same movie.
right. Well,
Like you could
maybe
easily.
they thought it went a little too nutty.
Yeah, but like you could have Josh Hartnett's character, you could have him in it, like because like in the first movie they're like, let's completely forget about all the things that came after the first movie when they made Halloween H40, and then this part two and three, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, were non-stop callbacks. Here's legacy character, here's a legacy character, here's a legacy character, here's a legacy character. Like they even said they wanted Paul Rudd to come back and play Tommy Doyle growing up, but
Mhm.
he couldn't because of schedule conflict. Sure, like he shouldn't exist because Paul Rudd played that character in Curse of Michael Myers Part Five, I think it was. So technically, you've already scripted him from existence when you rewritten the continuity by getting rid of all the sequels. So how can he come back and play a legacy character that no longer exists in that form?
What I want to see when they do all these remakes of everything, what I really want to see is a remake to Halloween 3. That was completely its standalone without Michael Myers. Do you remember that? The Curse of the Witch?
Season of the Witch. Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch, yeah.
Yeah.
I watch that movie every year at Halloween. It is a staple for me.
4 more days to Halloween,
Oh,
Halloween, Halloween. Yeah.
Silver
Silver
Shamrock, man.
Shamrock. Yeah, of course. Like the thing is, right? If you take that movie out of the Halloween franchise and have it as its own standalone movie, it would be a far more successful film. It's a good movie. It just doesn't belong in that franchise. And the
Right,
reason it took on the form it did, and I'm sure lots of horror fans know this already, is that John Carpenter thought the Michael Myers story was done. He didn't even want to do a sequel to Halloween, but because
right.
they were like, they're going to throw loads of money at it. And he was like, well, if somebody's going to write it, it might as well be me. I think it was Dick Rosenthal or someone else directed it. Rick Rosenthal, maybe. And he wrote it with Deborah Hill, who's one time partner, and who did the first movie with him as well. And he decided that if I'm going to come back for a third movie, Michael Myers' story is done, especially if you've seen the way part two finished with the explosion, blah, blah, blah. And he decided he wanted to do an anthology series. So he wanted Halloween 3, 4, 5, and 6 continuously going on. I mean, each movie was going to be a different story, and it was going to tell an anthology of Halloween stories. And it always had to be a different villain. And part three was supposed to be the beginning of this new anthology series, but because it was so like poorly received critically and at the box office, and later
Mhm.
became a cult classic, like they went back to the format of Michael Myers, which
Right.
I'm fully for that because it's like making. I know Jason Voorhees wasn't the original antagonist in the Friday the 13th franchise; it was the mother Pamela Voorhees.
Yeah.
But you can't make a Friday the 13th movie now without having Jason Voorhees in it. In the
Mhm.
same vein, you cannot make a Halloween movie without Michael Myers. In the same way, you can't make an Evil Dead movie without Bruce Campbell. You know what I mean? Without Ash, like you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
I
So
I never saw the one that they made without Ash in it. I didn't think I wanted to see it because Ash wasn't in it. I was like, mm, mm.
yeah,
But
actually, to be slightly hypocritical of myself, the Fede Alvarez Evil Dead from 2013 is actually incredibly gory. Like they've used like nearly the record amount of fake blood ever in a film, or maybe they did. Like it was incredibly gory. The new movie not so good. Rise, Evil Dead Rise wasn't as good in my opinion.
I didn't watch that one either. Was Bruce Campbell in that one?
No, it was set in a high rise. It was about a family, a young family, and it was like a possession type thing. And it was actually directed by an Irish director, but his name escapes me right now. He directed Hole in the Ground. But like, yeah, it's a great I Evil Dead 2013 encapsulated a lot of what made the first movie good. The original Evil Dead before it became more comedic, when it
Mhm.
was more dark and gritty and vicious and like not funny about a tree raping someone, that kind of thing. Like so, you know what I mean. So the gore in Evil Dead 2013, Fede Alvarez, who actually directed I think the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I thought was really good with Jessica Biel in it and Lee Ernie as well, and like or Lee Ernie and but like
I'm
the,
gonna whisper this to you, even though like you're gonna hear it anyway. I had the guy I had the guy on my podcast who played Leatherface in that movie on my podcast.
Gunnar, not
Uh,
Gunnar Nelson, not
no,
Gunnar,
it was it was Andrew
Gunnar
Bernard.
Nelson.
Um,
Oh, really? Yeah. Do you have you? What was he like?
it was the worst. It was the worst podcast I ever did.
Did he not talk? Just kept
Like,
running his chainsaw.
what's that?
He just kept running the chainsaw. I didn't talk once the entire podcast.
He I don't know, man. He just it was. I mean, I like him. I get along with the guy, but um, he it, like
Just you
if you
get
go
the
back
vibe.
if you go back and watch it on my YouTube page, like it's completely not organic. You know what I mean? Like he wanted me to start with introducing him in a way like he played this, he played that, he is that, he's this actor that is blah and blah blah. We're so lucky to have this blah blah blah. And I'm like that's not the way I do the show. Like
Yeah.
and
I
and then like
could I've gotten you to do that? Could I? You could have given me an intro like whatever,
yeah,
whatever. I wasn't. You could have given me an intro like that. No
couldn't have
biggie.
given you
Whatever.
that aggressive non-organic intro. And then when he showed up on the thing, and it was like he was just doing it from his phone, and there was like other people over his house, and he was smoking and doing who knows what else, uh, while sitting there talking to me and like talking to other people, and it was like aren't you a Hollywood guy? Like don't you have don't you have like the ability to like have access to like a microphone in a studio? Like sitting out in your yard with other people talking to me on here. There was like no microphone, no headphones, nothing. It was just him holding his phone, and it was not my favorite. I like the
Yeah.
guy though. I like the guy, but not for sure not my favorite episode I've ever done.
Yeah, like if I, like it's not hard to get a microphone. Like
Mhm.
you know what I mean. Amazon people, the best Chinese technology money can buy right here.
So when you were doing your horror podcast, you said that was called uh,
Invasion of the Potty Snatchers.
the Potty Snatchers. Yes. Did you did you have like a format with guests all the time, or did you like pick a certain movie? How did you normally lay that out?
Uh, So we initially started off. It was just me and my co-host Noel John Tui, and we would just review classic horror movies. And then like we would just talk about our favorite horror movies. But then as the show evolved, we ended up getting guests on, and we branched out. We did like series. We did like a thing called Franchise Fridays, where we would release like we would sit there for 3 or 4 hours and talk about an entire franchise in different episodes. We would break up the franchise like excuse me, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just say for example, we'd have like one, two, and three, and then we'd have like the remakes, and then we'd have like the prequels or whatever, and then we'd talk about franchise. And we release all those episodes throughout a Friday, and we'd call that Franchise Friday. But we used to do like I think we used to do 2 shows a week. We released on like a Tuesday and a Thursday, unless we were doing a franchise Fridays, and that week we would release on a Friday. We started off just reviewing classic horror movies. We did audio. We did pretty well on Spotify. We branched out then and we got guests on. We did like series where we had 8 guests on the every guest did a double episode. So we had 16 zombie movies, and then we did like a 16-part zombie series, and that ran for like 8 weeks or something like that. Like, and we did different stuff like that. We had like uh horror directors on, horror actors, horror writers, just other podcasters, and we just broke down like horror movies from all over like the spectrum pretty much. We during the zombie one we had the guests pick the movie, so that was kind of fun. So the guests would pick their 2 zombie movies, and we would go and watch them and come back. So we got some really interesting like choices like White Zombie for one of our guests. What was her, can't remember her name, but she's a really cool lady for us. She was American. She did podcast. I haven't spoke to her in a while, but like so like ended up like incorporating zombie movies from like 1930s up as far as 2010s. So like in a 16 part, like so stuff like that was kind of cool. I got to meet lots of cool people from it. That's how I initially met Dylan, Jukebox Ginger. You know how I met Beige Benford, and I met lots of cool podcasters throughout that, like Roman Sandquist, and so like it was literally initially because I'd left the world of reviewing to kind of call back to what we were talking about earlier when I was talking about how I got into fictional writing. When I left the world of reviewing, I still wanted to talk about movies, so I thought podcasting was a good avenue for that. So we kind of
Mhm.
had this little network where we couldn't decide what kind of podcast we wanted to do, so we did multiple podcasts and at the beginning. So we had like this one talking about comic book stuff, nerdy stuff, science fiction, fantasy, superheroes. We did a lot of stuff like that in the superhero realm. And then we had another podcast was all about horror and horror sci-fi and we did like interview shows and stuff like that. And eventually we got rid of the superhero comic booky one because it wasn't getting as much traction. We were finding it harder to come up with content that we're really passionate about, and we got rid of the interview show and we just kind of encapsulated it all, incorporated it all into one. And Invasion of the Potty Snatchers was our most popular show in terms of our downloads and views. So we just kept that going, and then we just kept getting genre people to interview. So we would have, we would do reviews sometimes. We would do just ourselves. We would have guests come on. We do series, and we did franchise Fridays, and we had interviews. So we ended up making it a really kind of overarching kind of show. Like it was a lot of fun. It was like
What's
a lot of fun,
what's
but
what's your favorite zombie movie?
favorite zombie movie. One that maybe I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of the best zombie movies that I've seen is Cargo with Martin Freeman. It's a movie set in Australia, and it's about a man that has become infected, and the rate of infection, the this it will take 36 hours to come into effect. He has a newborn baby, and he has to carry his newborn baby on his back within 36 hours to safety before he becomes a zombie and kills it.
Mhm.
And that's what the movie's about. It's not one of the more like well-known zombie movies. I could have said 28 Days Later. Like I think it might be one of the best zombie movies that I've ever seen. I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but 28 Days Later, the early seasons of The Walking Dead. I know they're not movies, but I thought they were really, really well done. The first three seasons, four seasons in particular,
Mhm.
and some of the later seasons. But
I
yeah,
think
I think
I fell off of the series once Rick disappeared. When they had the
season nine, I
disappearance
think.
of Rick Grimes, I think I fell off like, and I think around then was probably when I kind of stepped away from horror a little bit. Like I kind of was like,
Mm,
right, I'm inviting like these kind of like these like gory thoughts and like weird dark thoughts into my head. Like
mm,
I was like, maybe I need to focus more on like peace and fun. Like so I kind of stepped away. Like I designated Halloween time to be able like just to stay in like I jump back into being a horror movie fan only at Halloween time. And I
yeah.
it's a weird thing that I like took myself out of that like uh, dark energy sort of mind space because
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of kind of invite manifesting brighter things in my life.
I watch horror all the time.
Yeah, I
I just went to see the monkey on Thursday, but no, not yesterday. It was Wednesday. I went to see the monkey James Wan's new movie. Osgood Perkins. It was okay. It was some of the kills were pretty enjoyable in it. The Koshoi film that I just watched, I could suppose you could kind of class as a horror movie. It's more of a historical action movie in a lot of ways. I watched The Presence this week. I watched I watched a really good horror movie the other day. What was it? I, oh, it's here somewhere. I watched I watch horror all the time. I'm a horror author, so like that's literally my bread and butter. Heart Eyes, which is a really good kind of like a satire horror. But again, that's literally my bread and butter. I love watching horror. I watch horror all the time. I grew up watching horror. I watched. horror way before I should have. I seen Halloween when I was a little kid. Like I watched Jaws when I was a little kid. Like I watched a lot of gore growing up, and like I watch horror all the time, bro. I know, I understand. Like lots of people are like they can't watch horror before they go to bed or whatever. Dude, I can doze off watching horror movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love horror. I still do. I still love horror.
Yeah.
Like I love gore and I love horror. I really um oh, you didn't ask me my favorite zombie movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was about to, but you went on a tangent.
Return of the Living Dead.
Yes, classic George A. Romero.
Uh I think George Romero wasn't a part of doing it, but he like started developing it with the guy who did put it out. It was I think originally supposed to be a sequel to Dawn to it was supposed to originally be a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but then
Yeah.
it got twisted around somehow. I'm not all the way certain about the origins of the story. But I'm sure other horror fans probably know it. But um, I listened to the director's commentary, and they said something about how
Oh,
it was originally developed with George Romero.
is Return of the Living Dead the one with the girl dancing on the grave?
Yes, yes,
Yes, yes. It's more like a punky film, isn't it? Like,
yes, yes. It
yeah,
was
awesome.
when they would talk and brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's my favorite.
Are you a fast zombie guy or a slow zombie guy?
A slow zombie guy.
I think they should move somewhat more freely until rigor mortis sets in,
Mhm.
and
Well,
then over time they should slow down.
like when they were running in the remake of Dawn of the Dead, I was like, I don't know about running. I don't know.
Yeah, not running, moving more freely for
Right,
a
right.
time, and then we should be able to see the actual decrepitude of the
Mhm.
person, the organic person, like because I think that would add new threats, and it would like you'd be able to kind of
Well,
pretty
yeah,
much evolve
it
the
should
horror.
be evolving the way they were doing it in the Walking Dead series. So,
Yeah.
like where like they're getting smarter and all that. Like they did it. One of my other favorite zombie movies was Day of the Dead. When the it was
Land of the Dead.
that was what's that?
Was it Land of the Dead where they got smart? The
No,
zombies got smart.
I'm talking about Day of the Dead, where they had the Bub was the zombie they were making him get smarter, and he like learned how to use a gun. It was just it was also George Romero. It was like it was I think it was a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead.
Is
But
that the
also
one with John Leguizamo? No,
no.
no, no.
The guy looked similar to John Leguizamo, but it wasn't John Leguizamo. Uh, there was no famous actors in it. Um,
Are you for zombies regaining some sort of cognitive kind of like abilities?
I'm ever changing on it. You know what I mean? Like I can't say that I all the way agree with it, and I can't say that I all the way disagree with it. I'm
Just
it's an interesting concept to see
yeah, it
what's
just
going to
to me it makes no sense though because like if the body is breaking down organically over time as decomposed, then the brain's functions will become less and less over time, even though it's being hardwired or rewired by this disease.
happen. Right?
You know,
Yeah.
like
It's an infection, so it's
yeah.
like a how is their brain gonna how's I don't know. It's a fine line to walk on. You know what I mean? On
Mm,
whether they should act as if they're sick because they are.
yeah.
It's strange. Um, what what other? I was going to ask you about how you felt about Rob Zombie movies.
Ooh, maybe Rob Zombie. I don't know, like pretty much. I like House of a Thousand Corpses. I enjoyed. I enjoyed Devil's Rejects, but I did not like his Halloween remakes at
We
all.
are the exact same on that. You and I, we're the exact same. I
Yeah,
I like the first. I liked House of a Thousand Corpses a lot, and I liked Devil's Rejects a good amount.
yeah,
But
yeah. I didn't like Lords of
when
Salem.
he
I didn't like
when he
that.
was doing Halloween, those were bad. I didn't
Yeah,
understand. I didn't understand the whole white horse thing in the second one. All of that
yes.
was just like, what are we just shoehorning Sherry Moon in these movies?
Man,
I
I
don't know.
think Rob Zombie would suit Texas Chainsaw Massacre better than Halloween in terms of his directorial style. Like I just don't think like people understand like with Halloween. When you see like Halloween Kills, when the part where is it in Halloween Kills where he takes out like 12 firemen, that is not Halloween. That's not Michael Myers. Like that's not
Right.
how he operates as a killer. He's a stealth killer. He's a
Mhm.
stalker. He poaches and stalks his prey until they're alone and vulnerable, and he kills them. He doesn't mount up and fights 12 people. That's not how he kills. He's not Jason Voorhees. He's not like
Right.
Leatherface. Like
Right.
I just think people have to like if you look at David Gordon Green, I think he did an excellent job with Halloween 2018, and then he
Mhm.
lost his way with the sequels.
Oh yeah, I
Rob,
agree with
Rob,
you all the way. I
yeah,
that's what I was talking about the 2018 Halloween when they acted like like everything after Halloween 2 didn't exist. I, I
mm,
I didn't mind that because it was a good movie, but everything
yeah,
that followed that I didn't really enjoy as much.
yeah, and it was like the Rob Zombie ones. The first movie was
Mhm.
definitely better than the second movie,
Exactly, exactly.
but
Like
neither of them are good Halloween movies, in my
like
opinion.
Lori turning into like got all tramped up, like she's just it was it was
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
Like
and they had the one cool callback was they had Danielle Lloyd who played Jamie. No, sorry, Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5. She
mhm.
came back and played Annie, I think, in Rob Zombie's Halloween.
I mean, she's great in everything. Like
Yeah,
no complaints
Danielle
about
Harris.
seeing her in anything. Right. Like
Yeah,
I think everyone our age had a crush on her as a child.
yeah, of course. Like how we know we watched Halloween way too early. Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody should watch Halloween and have a childhood romance. Like, you know, that's when you know you're subjected to Halloween way
Remember
too
her on
early.
Roseanne?
Daniel Harris.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
was
was
she in
like
Roseanne? Yeah.
the bad girl next door on Roseanne.
Man, I have not seen that show in so long
You,
since its original run.
yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's when I remember seeing it when I was a child.
Oh man, like that show that came back again and then it got
Yeah,
cancelled,
and then it
or
went
it
away
continued on
again, and
without
then
her.
it came back again, and
Yeah,
it went away again. That's that's that cancel culture that be happening.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you did you hear the song that Roseanne did? She did a
Mm.
song with what's the guy name? Tom McDonald. I it's like a rap song. Uh,
Oh.
I played it for my co-host Lou, and he was like, "I thought that was Eric Cartman from South Park."
Man, she does actually sound like Cartman.
So, what's something that you've never been asked in a podcast? You've done multiple podcasts forever now. What's something you've
Hmm.
never been asked that you wished you had been asked?
Oh, let me see. Honestly, I don't really know, man. Like I don't know. I love one thing I do love talking about is like advanced ancient civilizations. Like that's something I'm like really interested in because I don't believe human evolution is linear at all, and I also don't believe in theology. Like theology, I'm not religious. I'm atheist. Like so, I think. the origins of humanity and deities and all this come from a misunderstanding of things that have actually gone on in the past. And myths and legends were actually based in some form of realism that occurred in our lost history. So I
Mhm.
don't know. I have spoken about this before in other podcasts, but it's just something like that I'm really interested in. So I've been on lots of podcasts, like lots of movie ones and stuff like that. So pretty much, if anyone has ever listened, most people would know what kind of movies I love. I love The Thing, which is my favorite movie probably of all time. Kurt Russell. That's one thing I love about movies. I was born in 1987. That movie came out in 1982. It was complete derise in its time. It was a box office flop. It ended up becoming one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and it's now probably my favorite movie of all time, even though it was made 5 years before I was even born. Like that's one thing I love about movies, that like you have
Right.
this like ability to almost time travel, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I I something like, do you believe in advanced ancient civilizations? What's your standing on, like, the thing I'm getting into most lately is like Tartaria and stuff like that, because I've already done Nemoria, the Land of Mu, and Atlantis, which I'm obsessed with. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, I'm not. I haven't gotten too much uh, into like deep diving into things. I do
Mm.
find it very fascinating. I think like the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and all that stuff.
Hmm.
I could go into a rabbit hole. Uh, but like, I don't want to say that like that I know that any of that is all the way accurate, or that any of that is all the way fake. I I I,
Mm.
I don't. I'm mature enough to say that I don't know everything, you know,
Mm. But
and
wouldn't it be cool to know about that stuff?
right. It would be cool.
Yeah.
Like I have this mental picture in my head all the time. There's like certain things that I just like to know, but I don't want to learn it. Remember in the Matrix when Neo got the thing plugged into his head and he just knew how to fly a helicopter now, and he just learned how to fight kung fu now. Like
Mm.
I wish I could have certain things just plugged into the back of my head and I would just know them. Like like to play guitar. I don't want to learn to play guitar. I just want to
Yeah.
know how to pick up a guitar and learn how to play it. Uh, if the Matrix technology uh, exists, give me the ability to plug certain things into my head. Like I don't have balance. I wish I had balance so I could like skateboard. I don't want to learn to skateboard, but I'd like to be able to do it. Like I'd like to be able to just go outside and just be like, "Well, look, I can skateboard now."
Yeah, but
I need a skateboard.
process. Show me. But like I love research, and I love discovering new things. I'm kind of, that's appeals to me when I'm writing a book and stuff like that, is the research side of things. Like it took me as much research time as it did writing time for River of Bones. Like I wrote the entire drafted the entire book, and I had to go rename all my crow characters because I had their names in the wrong dialect.
Oh,
Stuff like that, because it's Siouan. The languages are Siouan based. It's Siouan is a dialect,
mhm,
but there's different dialects within Siouan, and like,
mhm.
it's kind of like Algonquin is like the overarching thing, and then there's different dialects within these things. Like so, like that's
Miliwake, which is
the that's Wayne's World, Alice Cooper.
more Wayne's World swinging back around.
Call back, call back. But yeah, like I like doing deep dives. I like going down rabbit holes and finding out new things. Like that's what I said. Like recently, like I'm not one of these guys that believes everything on face value. Like I think there's enough evidence out there to prove that we're not living on a flat Earth. I'm not like looking for conspiracies. I'm not looking for new like. Oh, I'm out there though. Is I like discovering new things, and I like the way it makes you think about other things that are probably more plausible, but it's
What's
very cool.
weird is the people who have like these really out of this world ideas also have other ideas that are sounding intelligent. Like they're
Mm,
confident people, and I think like you were just saying, face value. A lot of people just share something that it has a clicky headline,
Yeah.
And a lot of a lot of people just go, "Oh, you do your research." I'm like, "What is your research? Well, state it. If you're gonna cry about people not doing their research on things, what is the thing? Is your research the one thing that you know? Like, is that the you're quoting a book
Yeah.
that's the research? It's a weird.
Yeah, they're parroting other people's opinions as though they were their own.
Right. Yeah. I'm not I'm not an atheist. I wouldn't identify as that. And what's
Yeah.
weird is the fact that you're forced to identify as anything uh, is is strange to me. Um,
Mm,
but when it comes to a book that was written by people, people are not perfect, and most
mm,
most of the people I know or have ever met are also people, and they're imperfect. Um, it's and there is things that get lost in translations. Let's say one text was written in this language, and then it was translated into this and this and this and this and this. The person translating it is an imperfect person who goes, "Oh, that they probably meant this and that. Oh, this
mm.
is what they probably meant," because like
Yeah.
not everything is a perfect translation.
Mm.
Um, so I don't plant my flag anywhere to go like that's all the way what I believe,
Yeah.
because I'm ever changing, ever evolving, ever growing.
Yeah, I just think, in my opinion, that the conception of religion is that there were advanced cultures that were misconstrued as deities in the past, and the stories and legends have been told, and it's just gone on. It's kind of like if you look at the cargo cults in World War II, when you see these uncontacted tribes who start worshiping planes and stuff like that because they thought there were gods coming down from the sky.
Mhm. Right. Like sometimes you don't have all the information before you decide that you're going to write something down, and other people are going to read it and they're going to not know just the same way you didn't know.
Yeah, or sometimes stories just get embellished, and
Right.
just the way it
Yeah.
is, you know.
And it's the nature of the beast. And
Yeah, and then sometimes people contort narratives so they can maintain control, which is, that happens all the time
it's
too.
like sometimes people do things just because they get paid for it, and that's just fine.
Yeah. And while we're on that, I have a message from our sponsors.
So I'm I like talking about, I've said it to you before when you joined me last time, and I want to say it again. How much I like talking about things being on the record, almost similar to you talking about the film and how it can
Yeah,
like transition, like transcend time. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
not like it's not like things can be timeless, and
Mm,
I like having this platform as like a little timestamp on who I am at the time and what my opinions were on things because they are ever changing. Um, what I like to do is talk about how important the effort, the currency of your effort and your attention, how valuable that is to me. And I want to make sure that I'm saying to you on the record, because I've had a lot of people who have joined me here who are no longer with us. And now I have the record where I can go back and say, look, this is a conversation that we had, and this is where we said the most valuable things to each other. And this is the time where we kind of like opened up and we're pretty vulnerable about things. I want to make sure you know how like psyched I am that we're friends. The currency of your effort and attention is so valuable to me because like you use your time so like productively. Uh,
sometimes.
I sometimes So,
Sometimes I just
so
like laying around doing nothing.
so I want to tell you how psyched I am about what the future might bring. The I'm excited that we're friends and we can get along so well, and like, we're going to continue to know each other even more and more as we speak, and on we're we got a 5 hour time difference between us. You know what I mean? Like we're on opposite sides of the world. So I just wanted to thank you and tell you that this relationship budding is very special for me, and I want to give you my light and love, and tell you how much I appreciate you, and tell you now, while we're on the record, that if you ever have anything going on that you feel like I could be a good resource for you, please don't ever hesitate to like reach out to me, call me, text me, anything. If you're ever going through anything, please don't ever feel alone. Don't ever feel like you don't have a
Of course.
resource. If you want to, just have judgment free conversation with a friend, don't ever feel like you don't have any friends. I'm your friend forever. And that's
Right
that's
back at
shoot.
you, bro.
That's a shoot.
Thank you
That's a
very much.
shoot, brother.
Thank you very much, bro. Right back
And
at you, man.
and at at the same time, whilst still on the record, I'd like to give you the opportunity to say or ask me anything you'd like.
So we've talked about movies, zombies, World War Three, ancient civilizations, writing. Would you like? Can you see yourself getting back into writing in the future? And what would be your dream project to work on
Um, so
outside of a memoir? Like, what would your dream project be? Passion project.
I have sci-fi in my brain that I'd like to get out. I have concepts. I have a lot of concepts. I think I have this one idea, uh, and you might have some fun with this. And I don't. I maybe me telling it, somebody else will hear it and take the idea. At least it will exist in the world. I'm excited about that. If you want to make this film, if you want to write this film or this series, reach out to me. I want to be involved. The idea I have is, you remember when 2000 was happening and everyone was like, "It's Y2K, the world's ending. The world's
Mhm.
ending." I'm thinking I want to do a thing where the world ends, but it's not the way everyone thinks the world ends. Just some disease hits people where now they only live to the age of the year they were born. So let's say I was born in 1983, I die at 83 years old, and everybody
Okay.
starts to kind of expire. So new kids can't be born because let's say like you're born in 2001, you die at 1 years old. Like so like they
Weird.
stop, like people start fading away. People start expiring away. And the the I think that there should be a a a, a part of society, maybe like the upper privileged, like very wealthy, rich people who are living in like gated communities that have gotten the cure for it,
Mm.
and they're able to have kids and have new life and shelter the kids from the outside, and they don't know that there's a apocalypse, an expiring humanity happening outside of their gates.
I
And
like it.
the kids are obsessed with pop culture because all they have is up until 2000. So all like 80s, 90s stuff is their favorite stuff. And then somehow they get word of what's going on outside of their gates. And they thought they had those gates for a different reason, like they had been lied to. But then they go like, "Oh, the world is expiring outside of our gates. Like, let's band together and help them. Let's find a way to get what our parents had as the cure for this. widespread so that everyone can do it and save the world. I, that is the like that has been in my brain for the last decade. I have not stopped thinking about that. Uh, I I I would really like to work on that.
You should do it, bro. It sounds interesting. It sounds complicated, but fun and challenging. Like some of the best things in the world to do are the hard things, you know. So
Right.
if I was you, I would just do it. The only way to do it is by doing it, bro. You should do it. It sounds interesting. I like the idea, and I love science fiction. I love science fiction. It's like horror, science fiction are my two favorite genres. 100%. I love science fiction.
Yes.
And when they combined, the thing, like or Color Out of Space or something like that. I love those movies.
How old is Astrid?
Astrid, my
Yeah,
daughter, she's 13.
Astrid is 13 years old.
Yeah.
So in 2025, which is right now, your daughter's 13
Mm,
years old. Um, I do this segment I like to call audio time travel, right?
yeah.
So let's say the year is 2045 and she stumbles across this recording. Not to say that anything's happened to you. Let's say, I mean,
Mm,
who knows what happens? Who's going to know what's going to happen with this world? Um, you were just talking about
yeah.
what may be inevitable. Who knows? Um,
World War III.
when she stumbles across this recording, the next thing you're saying are going right into the ears of 2045 Astrid. What things are you saying to her?
Hmm. I'd say.
Don't say what you'd say. Say you'll say what you're saying is going into her ears right now. Not
Okay.
answering a question. You're speaking directly to 2045 version of your daughter.
Um. I would say shoot them twice in the chest, once in the head. Just in case World War III breaks out. Yeah. So Astrid, if you listen to this and World War III is broken out and you don't speak Russian, yeah, shoot them twice in the chest, once in the head. Always go for the kill. Never give up. Never quit on yourself. But like at this stage, hopefully you're not scrambling for my advice because you'd be in your 30s. And I hope you have your life figured out. But I didn't in my 30s. So hopefully you're doing a lot better than me. She's grand plans. She's a super intelligent kid. So I think Astrid, yeah, twice in the chest, once in the head, and hopefully you don't have to fight in World War III, and you're not listening to this from a bunker somewhere. So yeah. I think that's it. I'm not really good for like my daughter will tell you this of first-hand experience. I'm not really good at words of wisdom. I don't have a lot of wisdom, bro. Like if you've seen the trajectory of my life, I didn't get here through wisdom. I got here through stubbornness. Like, you know what I mean?
Do you do any impressions? What's your favorite impression that you do?
Oof, I'm not really good at impressions. We did this last time. I wasn't really good at impressions. I'm just not. I'm not that guy. I'm
Can
bad
you
at
can
accents.
you can you, can you speak in an American accent?
Um, Let me see. Let me hear your accent for a second.
Let me hear your accent for a second.
Let me hear your accent for a second. American man.
Pretty great. It's pretty great.
Totally tubular, dude.
Do the way we close out every episode is I'll have the guest say the tagline, how we wrap it. I'll have them say in their best impression or in your best American accent. Say the way we close out. We say, "Be fun, have safe, keep evolving."
Do you want me to say it now?
Yeah.
Like it's so look at seamless, Corey. It was seamless. I'm a pro. I understand seamless. Jazz fingers. um, but yeah, okay, okay, all
Real,
you
real quick,
American
first,
listeners.
first, give us Give us Tinkerbell instructions for how to get to Neverland.
Just click your fingers.
Second star to the left and straight on to.
No, no, you did it again. Sorry, what was the tagline?
Be fun, have safe, keep evolving.
Right, all you listeners out there, all you cool cats and kittens, be fun, have safe, keep evolving. I'm really bad at accents and I don't do impressions. Peace.
Everybody, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time checking out Evolving with Cory Kastle, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know you exist. Um, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. Um, you know, give somebody a hug. Tell somebody you love them. Be fun. Have safe. Keep evolving.